I raised him from the time he was 3 years old. I taught him to tie his shoes, helped him with homework, stayed up when he had nightmares. I was there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every victory. But on the day of his graduation, when he stood on that stage accepting his award, he looked at the sky and said, "My real mother would have been proud of me." And in that moment, I realized, to him, I was just the maid. I turned away so he wouldn't see the tears. This is my story, the story of a woman who gave everything and remained invisible. Before we begin, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments below. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more heartfelt stories like this one. Now, let me tell you how it all began. I still remember the first time I saw him. It was a Tuesday morning in April, and the heat was already settling over the city like a heavy blanket. I had just arrived at the Malhotra mansion. That's what everyone in the neighborhood called it, though to me it was just another job, another chance to send money back to my village where my aging parents waited. The agency woman had told me, "It's a good family, Sara, rich people. They need someone to look after the house and their son." She made it sound simple, like dusting furniture or washing dishes. But nothing about that job would ever be simple. Mrs. Malhotra, I learned to call her ma'am from day one, opened the door herself that morning. She was beautiful in the way magazine covers are beautiful. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile that never quite reached her eyes. She looked me up and down, taking in my simple cotton sari and the worn sandals on my feet. "You're the new maid?" she asked in English, though I'd answered in Hindi. "Yes, ma'am, Sara." "Good. Come in. Let me show you what needs to be done." The house was bigger than anything I'd ever seen. Marble floors so shiny I could see my reflection, crystal chandeliers hanging from high ceilings, furniture that looked like it belonged in a palace. My entire village home could fit in their living room. I tried not to stare, tried to focus on Mrs. Malhotra's rapid instructions about cleaning schedules and meal preparations. "And the boy?" I asked. "What is his age?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Arjun is 3. He's around somewhere, probably with his toys. Don't let him bother you too much. His father is always traveling for business, and I have my social commitments. That's partly why we need you." Before I could respond, I heard it, a small sound, like a wounded animal, crying, coming from somewhere upstairs. Mrs. Malhotra's painted lips tightened. "He's been crying since morning. I don't know what he wants. Just handle it, will you? I have a kiddie party at noon." She grabbed her designer purse and walked out, leaving behind a cloud of expensive perfume and me standing alone in this enormous house with a crying child I hadn't even met yet. I followed the sound up the curved staircase, my fingers barely touching the polished wooden railing. The crying led me to a room at the end of the hallway, a child's room, painted in cheerful yellows and blues, filled with more toys than I'd ever seen in my life. And there, in the corner, next to a giant teddy bear, sat the smallest boy. Arjun. He was tiny, with large brown eyes swimming in tears, his little body shaking with sobs. His expensive clothes, a branded t-shirt and shorts, seemed too big for his frame. He looked up when I entered, and for a moment we just stared at each other. "Hello, beta," I said softly, crouching down to his level. I didn't know what else to do, so I did what my mother used to do for me. I opened my arms. He hesitated for just a second before launching himself at me, his small arms wrapping around my neck, his tears soaking into my shoulder. He smelled like baby powder and sadness. "What happened, little one? Why are you crying?" "Mama went away." He hiccuped against my shoulder. "She said she'd come back soon, but she didn't. And now there's a new mama, but she doesn't. He couldn't finish, but he didn't need to. I understood. I'd heard the whispers from the agency woman. Arjun's real mother had died when he was barely a year old. Cancer, they said. Mr. Malhotra had remarried within a year to this beautiful woman who was better at attending parties than attending to a grieving child. "It's okay," I whispered, rubbing small circles on his back, the way my mother used to do for me. "It's okay to be sad, but you know what? I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." He pulled back to look at my face, his eyes searching for something. Truth, maybe, or safety. Promise? That word hit me harder than it should have. How many promises had been broken in this little boy's short life? How many people had walked away?
"Promise," I said, and I meant it. That's how it started. Not with a job description or a salary discussion, but with a broken little boy and a promise I didn't know would change my entire life. In the following days, I learned Arjun's world. He woke up at 7, but no one was there to help him dress. He ate breakfast alone at a table meant for 12. He played with 1,000 toys, but had no one to play with. His father, Mr. Malhotra, came home late, if he came home at all, smelling of cigarettes and expensive cologne, barely glancing at his son. His stepmother was always rushing somewhere, always on the phone, always too busy. But I was there. I was there when he scraped his knee in the garden and needed someone to blow on the wound to make it feel better. I was there when he had a nightmare about his real mother and woke up screaming. I was there to teach him how to properly hold a spoon, how to say please and thank you, how to count to 10 and then to 20. "Sara Auntie," he started calling me, then just Sara. And on particularly difficult nights, when the darkness felt too heavy and the house too empty, he would whisper, "Amma," into my shoulder, and my heart would break and heal at the same time. I told myself it was just a job. I told myself not to get attached. But how do you not fall in love with a child who reaches for your hand in crowds, who saves half his chocolate to share with you, who draws pictures of you and him together with the word family written in wobbly letters at the top? 3 months into working there, Mrs. Malhotra hosted a birthday party for Arjun. The house filled with children from expensive schools, their parents dripping in jewelry and judgment. There was a magician, a bouncy castle in the garden, and a cake so large it needed its own table. Arjun stood in the center of it all, looking lost. When it was time to cut the cake, Mrs. Malhotra posed next to him for photos, her smile brilliant for the cameras. But when the photographer left and the guests scattered, Arjun searched the room until his eyes found me standing near the kitchen door. He ran to me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and whispered, "I wished you could stand with me." I bent down, kissed the top of his head, and whispered back, "I'm always with you, beta. Always." I didn't know then that always would be tested in ways I couldn't imagine. I didn't know that love, real, deep, sacrificial love, could exist in the space between a maid and the child she raised. I didn't know that years later, on a stage in front of hundreds of people, I would learn exactly how invisible that love had always been. But in that moment, with his small hand in mine, I only knew one thing. This little boy had become my whole world. And I had become his. Or so I thought.
The years passed like pages in a book, some slow and peaceful, others torn and difficult, but I was there for every single page. When Arjun turned 5, he started kindergarten at Delhi's most elite private school. The fees for 1 year could have fed my entire village for months. Mrs. Malhotra insisted on the best, not because she cared about his education, but because all her friends' children went there. It was about status, not love. I still remember his first day. Mrs. Malhotra had a spa appointment, so it was me who ironed his tiny uniform, me who packed his lunchbox with the sandwiches he actually liked, not the fancy foods the cook prepared. It was me who held his trembling hand at the school gate. "Sara, what if No one likes me. His big brown eyes looked up at me, full of fear. I knelt down on the pavement, not caring that my sari was getting dusty. Then they don't know how lucky they are. You are kind, you are smart, and you are brave. And no matter what happens in there, I'll be right here when you come out. He hugged me tight, his small school bag bouncing against my shoulder. Promise? Promise, Beta. And I was, every single day. While Mrs. Malhotra slept late or attended her ladies' club meetings, I was the one standing at that gate at 2 p.m. sharp, watching for his face among the sea of children. His face would light up when he saw me, and he'd run, always run, into my arms, chattering about his day. The other mothers noticed, of course. They noticed that the maid picked up the Malhotra boy. They whispered behind their designer handbags. Some looked at me with pity, others with disdain. But Arjun never cared. To him, I was just his Sara, his safety. When he was 7, he came home crying. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were when I made his favorite aloo parathas. But that day, he wouldn't eat. Beta, what's wrong? I asked, sitting beside him on his bed. The boys at school, they said I don't have a real mama. They said the lady who lives here isn't my real mama. They said my real mama is dead and no one loves me. My heart shattered. I pulled him close, feeling his tears soak through my cotton sari. Listen to me, Arjun. Listen carefully. Love isn't about blood. Love is about who stays, who wipes your tears, who celebrates your happiness, who teaches you right from wrong. Blood makes you related, but loyalty makes you family. He looked up at me with those wise beyond his years eyes. Like you? Like me, I whispered. That night, after he fell asleep, I cried in my small room next to the kitchen. I cried because I loved him so much it hurt. I cried because I knew my place. I was the maid, the help, the servant. And no matter how much love I poured into this child, society would never see me as anything more. But I stayed. How could I not? By the time Arjun was 10, our routine was sacred. I woke him up at 6:30 with a glass of warm milk. We'd have breakfast together. Usually it was just us, since Mr. Malhotra left early for his office, and Mrs. Malhotra rarely emerged from her room before noon. I'd help him with his homework at the dining table, my fingers tracing over English words I'd taught myself to read better so I could help him. Sara, why didn't you study more? He asked me once, looking at my slow reading. My father couldn't afford school after class 8, Bepa. We needed money for food. That's not fair. Life isn't always fair, my child, but we make the best of what we have. He was quiet for a moment, then said, when I grow up and become rich, I'll make sure everyone can go to school, especially girls like you. My throat tightened with emotion. You have a good heart, Arjun. Don't ever lose that. I didn't know then that life would teach him to harden that heart. The cracks started showing when he turned 13. Teenage years brought changes, not just to his voice and height, but to how he saw the world. His school friends were all from wealthy families, children of industrialists and politicians. They had weekend parties at farmhouses, wore branded clothes, and talked about foreign vacations like some people talk about going to the market. Arjun started noticing differences. The difference between his English and mine. The difference between his designer sneakers and my simple rubber slippers. The difference between his world and mine. One evening, his friend Aditya came over to study. I brought them snacks, samosas and chai, like I always did. Thanks, Auntie, Aditya said politely. After I left, I heard him say, Dude, your maid is so nice. Ours is always grumpy. There was a pause. Then Arjun's voice changed. Uncomfortable. Yeah, she's been around forever. Been around forever. Like I was furniture. Like I was part of the house's inventory. It stung, but I told myself he was just growing up,
trying to fit in with his friends. It was normal, I reasoned. He was at that age. But it kept happening. When he was 15, I overheard Mrs. Malhotra talking to her friend during one of their afternoon tea sessions. I was in the kitchen, preparing snacks, but their voices carried. Honestly, Arjun is too attached to that maid. It's embarrassing. He still talks to her about everything. I've told him so many times, she's just the help. Well, you're never around, darling, her friend said with a laugh. What do you expect? I have my commitments. Besides, we pay her well. That's what she's there for. I gripped the counter, forcing myself to breathe. That's what she's there for. 13 years of love, sacrifice, sleepless nights, endless patience, reduced to a salary. But the worst was yet to come. Arjun was 16 when he asked me something that broke me. He had started preparing for engineering entrance exams, the toughest in the country. I helped him however I could, making sure he ate properly during his all-night study sessions, bringing him coffee at 2 a.m., sitting with him even when I didn't understand the complex mathematics he was solving. One night, exhausted and stressed, he snapped at me. Sara, you don't have to keep hovering. I'm not a child anymore. I stepped back as if he'd slapped me. I'm sorry, Beta. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. He sighed, rubbing his face. I know, I'm tired and sometimes what? Sometimes I wish I had a normal family, like my friends, a mom who understands what I'm going through, not someone who's just a maid. I didn't mean it like that. It's okay, I said, even though it wasn't. You should rest. You have your exam in the morning. I left his room and went to mine. For the first time since I joined this house 13 years ago, I wondered if I should leave. If maybe it would be better for both of us if I wasn't there, blurring the lines between servant and family, between duty and love. But the next morning, when Arjun came down for breakfast, he looked exhausted and worried. Without thinking, I went to him, placed my hand on his forehead like I'd done thousands of times before. You didn't sleep well. Nervous about the exam, he admitted. I made him his favorite aloo parathas, packed his lunchbox with the same care I'd done for years, and said what I always said. You'll do wonderfully. I believe in you. He paused at the door, looked back at me, and for just a moment, he was that little 3-year-old again, needing reassurance. Sara? Yes, Beta? Thank you for everything. It was enough. For now, it was enough. I didn't know then that in just 2 years, on the day he achieved everything we'd worked for together, those same words, thank you, wouldn't include me at all. I didn't know that the boy who once whispered Amma in the darkness would stand on a stage and talk about his real mother as if I'd never existed. But that morning, watching him walk out the door with his exam papers and his dreams, I was still foolish enough to believe that love, even between a maid and the child she raised, could conquer anything. I was wrong.
Arjun got into one of India's top engineering colleges. The day the results came out, he screamed with joy, and I screamed with him. For just a moment, we were back to being us. No walls, no distance, just pure shared happiness. Mrs. Malhotra threw a grand party to celebrate. She invited half of Delhi's elite society, boasting about her son's achievement to anyone who would listen. She wore a designer sari worth more than my yearly salary and posed for photographs with Arjun. Her arm around his shoulder, her smile perfect for the cameras. I stayed in the kitchen that night, preparing snacks for the guests, listening to her take credit for his success. I always knew he had it in him, she told someone. We've given him the best of everything, the best school, the best tutors, the best environment. The best tutors? I was the one who sat with him every night. The best environment? I was the one who made sure he had peace and comfort.
But nobody asked the maid about her role in the young master's success. Nobody thought to. Arjun came to the kitchen once during the party, grabbed a samosa and whispered, "Your samosas are better than anything out there." It was a small thing, but I held onto it like a lifeline. College changed him completely. Or maybe it just revealed who he was becoming. He moved into a hostel, which meant I saw him only on weekends and holidays. At first, he'd come home and still find me, still talk to me about his new life, his new friends, the fascinating things he was learning. But slowly, the stories became fewer. The visits became shorter. The warmth became polite. His new friends started coming to the house during holidays. Boys like Kabir, Rohan, and Siddharth, girls like Priya and Meera. They'd arrive in expensive cars, wearing clothes that cost more than I earned in months, and speaking English so fast I could barely follow. They'd lounge by the pool, order me around like I was invisible. "Auntie, get us some cold drinks." "Auntie, can you make some sandwiches?" Always auntie, never please, rarely thank you. And Arjun? He said nothing, did nothing. I watched him transform before my eyes. The boy who once defended me when his stepmother was rude now sat silently while his friends treated me like furniture. The boy who used to help me fold clothes now let his friends throw their wet towels on the floor for me to pick up. The worst day came during his third year in college. It was a Saturday afternoon and I was cleaning the living room when Arjun walked in with three of his friends, boys I'd seen before, always loud, always entitled. "Dude, your house is insane," one of them said, throwing himself on the expensive sofa. I continued dusting quietly, trying to be invisible, which is what good help does. Arjun was showing them something on his phone when one of the boys suddenly said, "Hey, is that you as a kid?" He was looking at a photograph on the side table, one of the few photos in the house. It showed 5-year-old Arjun on my lap, both of us laughing at something. I had my arms around him and his small hand was on my cheek. I remember that day. We'd been making paper boats and he'd been so happy. "Oh yeah," Arjun said, his voice strange. "That's old." "Is that your mom?" My heart stopped. I paused in my dusting, waiting. "No, that's Sara. She's worked here forever. She used to look after me when I was small." Worked here forever? Used to look after me. Past tense, professional, distant.
Oh, the maid, another friend said with a laugh. Dude, why do you have a photo with the maid in your living room? There was a moment of silence. I could feel Arjun's discomfort from across the room. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the walls. "My stepmom probably put it there," he said finally. "She does weird stuff like that." They laughed and moved on to another topic, but I couldn't move. I stood there, duster in hand, feeling like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it stopped beating. That photo, that precious memory of us, had become an embarrassment to him. I left the room quietly. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever did anymore. That night, I went to his room with his dinner like I'd done for 15 years. He was on his laptop, typing furiously. "Betta, you should eat something." "Just leave it on the desk, Sara. I'm busy." I placed the plate down carefully. "Arjun?" "Hmm?" He didn't look up. "That photo in the living room, the one of us, do you want me to remove it?" His fingers paused on the keyboard. For a moment, I thought he might turn around, might say something to fix the hurt, but he just said, "Whatever you think is best." Whatever I think is best. He couldn't even tell me himself that yes, it embarrassed him, that yes, I embarrassed him. I picked up that photo that night, looked at the joy on both of our faces, the innocence, the pure, uncomplicated love. I tucked it away in my room, hidden where his friends would never see it and mock him for it. The holidays became harder. I'd prepare his favorite foods, but he'd barely eat them, preferring to order pizza with his friends. I'd wait up for him when he came home late, but he'd walk past me with barely a nod, phone pressed to his ear, laughing with someone more important. I'd ask about his studies, and he'd give me one-word answers before escaping to his room. One evening, I overheard him on the phone with someone.
I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, I was just bringing fresh towels to his room. "No, Mom never really understood me," he was saying. "She cares more about her social life than anything else. Sometimes I wonder what my real mom would have been like, if she'd lived." I stood outside his door, towels in hand, invisible as always. He never mentioned me. In his story of loneliness and absent parents, I didn't exist. The woman who had raised him, loved him, sacrificed everything for him, I was just scenery in the background of his life, not worth mentioning, not worth remembering. I should have been angry, but I wasn't. I was just tired. Tired of loving someone who had learned to be ashamed of that love. Tired of being invisible while being everywhere. Tired of being essential but never acknowledged. But I couldn't stop. That was the curse of it. I couldn't stop caring if he ate properly, if he slept enough, if he was happy. I couldn't stop being his mother just because he'd stopped seeing me as one. So I stayed. I cooked his meals, washed his clothes, waited for him to come home. I loved him the way I always had, quietly, completely, invisibly. I stayed right until the day I couldn't anymore. The day he stood on a stage and confirmed what I had slowly come to realize. To him, I had never been real. I had never been enough. I had never been his mother. I had only ever been the help.
The invitation came on expensive cream-colored paper with gold lettering. You are cordially invited to the graduation ceremony of the class of 2024, Delhi Institute of Technology. Mrs. Malhotra had it framed. She showed it to all her friends during their afternoon tea sessions, talking about how proud she was, how she always knew Arjun would achieve great things. I heard her book appointments at the salon, choose her outfit weeks in advance, plan a celebration dinner at the city's most expensive restaurant. Nobody mentioned inviting me. I didn't expect them to. I knew my place. But still, a small part of me, the foolish part that had loved him for 18 years, hoped that maybe Arjun would say, Sara should come too. Hoped that maybe on this important day, he'd remember who had been there for all the other days. 3 days before the ceremony, I was in the kitchen when Arjun came in. He looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot like he used to do as a child when he wanted to ask for something. Sara, I wanted to give you this. He handed me an envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was money, a lot of it, more than my monthly salary. What is this for, beta? It's a bonus. For everything. For all these years. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I'm graduating, starting a job next month in Bangalore. I'll be moving out. So this is, to say thank you. Thank you? 2 words that somehow felt like goodbye. I don't need money, Arjun. I just need... He cut me off, already backing toward the door. Priya's waiting. We're going shopping for the ceremony. And he was gone. I looked down at the envelope in my hands. This was what I'd become. An employee being given a severance package. All those nights of homework, all those tears wiped away, all that love, reduced to cash in an envelope. But I had one more thing to give him. I'd been saving for months. From my salary, from the small amounts I'd managed to set aside, I'd collected enough to buy him a watch. Not an expensive one, I could never afford what his friends wore, but a good one. Simple, elegant, with an engraving on the back that I'd had done at the local jeweler. To my shining star. Always proud. Sara. I wrapped it carefully in silver paper, wrote his name on a card in my careful handwriting, and placed it in my bag. I would find a way to give it to him on graduation day, even if I wasn't officially invited. The day arrived warm and bright. I wore my best sari, the green one I'd bought 5 years ago for Diwali. I stood in front of my small mirror, adjusting the pleats, wondering if I was foolish for even thinking of going. But I had to. I had to see him walk across that stage. I had to be there for this moment, even if he didn't want me there. The auditorium was massive. Families filled the seats, dressed in their finest. I saw Mrs. Malhotra and Mr. Malhotra in the third row, prime seating, of course. Mrs. Malhotra wore diamonds that caught the light. Mr. Malhotra checked his phone, barely looking at the stage. I found a seat in the very back, in the corner where the support staff and drivers sat, where people like me belonged. The ceremony began. Speeches from dignitaries, musical performances, the national anthem, and then, one by one, students walked across the stage to receive their degrees. I watched each one, waiting, my heart beating faster with each name called. Arjun Malhotra. There he was, my boy, so tall now, so handsome in his black graduation gown. He walked confidently across the stage, shook hands with the dean, received his degree. The audience applauded. I clapped until my hands hurt, tears already streaming down my face. But then the dean handed him a microphone. Mr. Malhotra is also our gold medalist this year. He'd like to say a few words. Arjun stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. I saw him find his parents in the crowd, saw him smile. "Thank you," he began. "These 4 years have been incredible. I've learned so much, not just academically, but about life, about myself." I leaned forward, hanging on every word. I want to thank my professors who pushed me to be better, my friends who made this journey memorable, and especially my father, who showed me what it means to be successful, and my mother. He paused. Mrs. Malhotra sat up straighter, ready to receive her praise. My mother who gave me life. I know she's not here physically. She died when I was too young to remember her. But I think about her every day. I wonder what she'd think of me, if she'd be proud of what I've become. His voice cracked slightly. The audience was completely silent. Today, as I stand here with this degree, this gold medal, I look up and I hope she's watching somehow. I hope she knows that everything I've achieved, every success I've had. He looked up at the ceiling, his eyes glistening. I did it for her. My real mother would have been proud of me. The audience erupted in applause. People were wiping their eyes. It was beautiful, touching, emotional. And I felt my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. My real mother. 18 years. 18 years of love, sacrifice, late nights, early mornings, wiped tears, celebrated victories, held hands, whispered encouragements. 18 years of being his everything when everyone else was absent. And I wasn't real? I stood up, my legs shaking. The wrapped gift felt heavy in my hands. Around me, people were still clapping, still moved by his beautiful speech about the mother he never knew, the mother who gave him life but never raised him, the mother who was real because she was born to him, while I was just the help who happened to love him. I looked at him one last time. He was hugging Mrs. Malhotra now, who was crying theatrical tears for the cameras. Mr. Malhotra patted his back. His friends were rushing the stage, congratulating him. He was surrounded by love, by celebration, by his real family. He didn't see me standing in the back. He never did. I turned away so he wouldn't see me cry. Not that it mattered. He wasn't looking. He never was. I walked out of that auditorium with my gift still wrapped, my heart broken beyond repair, and the clear understanding that I had spent 18 years loving someone who had never really seen me at all. The card in my bag said, "Always proud," and I was. Even now, even through the pain, I was proud of him. But he would never know, because to him,
I had never been real enough to matter.
I didn't go back to the Malhotra house that night, or the next day, or the day after that. I sent a simple message through Raju, the driver. Sara won't be returning. Please send her belongings to her village address. I didn't write a letter. I didn't explain. What was there to say? How you put 18 years of invisible love into words that would matter to people who never saw you in the first place. I went back to my village, to the small house where my aging parents still lived. They were surprised to see me. Beta, what happened? My mother asked, seeing my swollen eyes. Nothing, Amma, I lied. I just missed home. For 3 weeks, I tried to forget. I helped my mother with cooking, worked in the small vegetable patch behind our house, visited the temple every morning. But at night, I still worried. Was Arjun eating properly? Was he packing correctly for his move to Bangalore? Did he remember to take his allergy medicine? Even in my pain, I couldn't stop being his mother. Meanwhile, in Delhi, Arjun barely noticed I was gone. He was busy with his new job preparations, celebration parties, shopping for his apartment in Bangalore. Mrs. Malhotra hired a new maid within 2 days, a younger woman who didn't know that Arjun hated tomatoes in his doll, who didn't know that he needed exactly 2 pillows to sleep comfortably, who didn't know him at all. It took him 2 weeks to realize something was missing. The new maid made his favorite aloo parathas, but they tasted wrong. His clothes came back from laundry stiff and uncomfortable. Sara had always added that special fabric softener. His room felt different, impersonal. Small things. Everything was small things. Then he found the gift. It was sitting on his desk, partially hidden behind his laptop. The silver wrapping paper he recognized. Sara always wrapped gifts in silver paper, said it was auspicious. His hands trembled as he opened it. The watch was simple but beautiful. And on the back, engraved in careful letters, "To my shining star, always proud, from Sara." Always proud. Even after everything, even after he'd reduced her to the help in front of his friends, even after he'd erased her from his success story, even after he'd handed her money as if love could be paid off, she was still proud of him. He sat down hard on his bed, the watch clutched in his hand. When had she bought this? How long had she saved for it? Why hadn't she given it to him? "Where is Sara?" he asked Mrs. Malhotra that evening. She looked up from her phone, barely interested. "Oh, she quit. Sent word through Raju. Good riddance, honestly. The new girl is much more efficient." "Quit? When? Where did she go?" "How should I know? Back to her village, I suppose. Why do you care?" Why did he care? The question hung in the air like an accusation. He went to Sara's room, the small space next to the kitchen that had been hers for 18 years. It was empty now, stripped of everything that had made it hers. But in the corner, forgotten or deliberately left behind, was a small diary. Arjun knew he shouldn't read it, but he did. The entries went back years, pages and pages of Sara's life, written in her careful Hindi, sometimes switching to broken English when she'd learned new words to help him with homework. Today, Arjun got 95% on his math test. He was so happy. I made his favorite kheer to celebrate. Arjun had a nightmare tonight. He held my hand until he fell asleep. My arm went numb, but I didn't move. How could I? And then, later entries. Arjun said I'm embarrassing in front of his friends. It hurt, but I understand. He's growing up. He walks past me like I'm invisible now, but I see him. I always see him. The last entry was dated the day before his graduation. Tomorrow he graduates. My boy, my shining star. I bought him a gift I can't afford, but what is money compared to love? He won't understand why I'm proud, won't understand that every achievement of his feels like mine too. That's okay. A mother's love doesn't need acknowledgement to be real. I will always be proud of him, even if he never sees me as his mother. Even if I was never real to him,
He will always be real to me. Arjun's vision blurred. Tears fell on the pages, smudging the ink of her careful words. He had spent his entire graduation speech talking about a mother he never knew, while ignoring the mother who knew everything about him. He had honored a memory while destroying a living, breathing love. He found her village address in the house records. It took him 6 hours to drive there, his expensive car struggling on the unpaved roads. Her house was tiny, humble, so different from the mansion where she'd spent 18 years of her life serving his. She was in the front, feeding chickens, when he arrived. She looked up, surprised. Then her face closed off, a look he'd never seen before. Protection. Distance. "Arjun Beta," she said formally, "what are you doing here?" He got out of the car, the watch still in his pocket, the diary in his hands. I came to say I'm sorry. There's nothing to be sorry for. I paid you well, I did my job." It was never just a job. His voice broke. "Was it?" She looked at him for a long moment, this woman who had been his everything, and he saw it, all the years of love, sacrifice, and pain in her eyes. "No, Beta," she said quietly. "It was never just a job." "Then why did you leave without saying goodbye?" "Because," she said, her voice steady, despite the tears in her eyes, "you said goodbye to me a long time ago. You just never said the words." They stood there in the dusty courtyard, 18 years of love and loss between them. He wanted to hug her, to beg forgiveness, to turn back time. But some distances, once created, can never fully be crossed. "I read your diary. I didn't know. I didn't understand." "You were never supposed to understand, Arjun. That's what a mother's love is. It exists whether you see it or not." He stayed that day, and the next. He met her parents, saw where she came from, understood the sacrifices she made. He tried to make things right, offered money, offered to take her back, offered everything except what she'd always wanted, to simply be acknowledged, to be seen, to be real. She refused it all with quiet dignity. "I don't want your guilt, Beta. I only ever wanted your love. But you've already given that to a ghost, and that's okay. That's your right." He visits now, every month, brings her groceries, medicine for her parents, tries to bridge the gap his cruelty created. She's kind to him, always kind, but the warmth is gone. The Amma whispered in the dark is gone. The unconditional love is still there, she can't help that. But it's protected now, guarded, no longer freely given. Some loves survive rejection, but they never survive it unchanged. Sometimes we don't realize what we have until it's gone. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones we see the least. This story is for every Sara in the world, every maid, nanny, caregiver, helper who raised someone else's child with their whole heart and remained invisible. And it's also a reminder, love doesn't require the same blood to be real. It requires presence, sacrifice, and acknowledgement. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video. It helps us reach more people with meaningful stories. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Comment below. Tell us about someone in your life who deserves recognition. Tag them. Thank them. Don't let them remain invisible. And subscribe to our channel for more powerful, real-life stories that matter. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.